I woke up to a room that did not belong to me. Soft morning light slipped through thin curtains and spread gently across a polished vanity table. Everything looked elegant, quiet, and expensive, and completely unfamiliar. I sat up slowly, my head still heavy. Then my eyes fell onto the mirror. The girl staring back at me was beautiful. Delicate features, flawless skin, long dark hair falling over her shoulders. But she was not me. A name surfaced in my mind, like something breaking through deep water. Su Ziyan. My heart dropped. I knew this name. I had read it before. In a novel, a ridiculous, over-the-top, melodramatic story I once read just to pass time. And Su Ziyan was the villain. Not just any villain, a cannon fodder side character designed to be hated. Spoiled, arrogant, jealous. Someone who did everything wrong and ended up dying miserably. Silence filled the room. Then I buried my face into the blanket and let out a muffled groan. Why this story? Out of all the sweet romantic novels I had ever read, why did I have to end up here? Why her? I pushed myself back up and stared at my reflection again, trying to process reality. Same face as the book described, same luxurious bedroom, same life that looked perfect on the outside, and the same ending, a slow, painful destruction. I remembered everything. In the original story, Su Ziyan grew up as the only daughter in a wealthy family, loved, spoiled, protected. But everything changed when the female lead appeared. An illegitimate daughter raised outside, suddenly brought into the family. Soft, gentle, innocent on the surface. But behind that image was someone calculating and ruthless. Step by step, she replaced Su Ziyan, took her position, her family, her fiancé, and in the end, her life. I felt a chill run down my spine because I knew exactly how it would all unfold. My brother would fall for that girl and turn against me. My mother would be manipulated and slowly pushed aside. My father? I let out a quiet laugh. That man was never on our side to begin with. And me? I would become the perfect stepping stone, framed, isolated, hated, until one day I would die in a staged accident and no one would question it. The more I thought about it, the colder I felt. This was not just a story anymore. This was my life now. I clenched the bedsheet tightly. No, I am not following that script. If I already know the ending, then why would I walk straight into it? I slowly stood up and walked toward the window. Outside, the mansion stretched wide and grand. Green lawns trimmed perfectly. A fountain shimmering under the early sunlight. Everything looked peaceful. Too peaceful, like the calm before a storm. I closed my eyes for a moment and took a deep breath. Fine. If I am stuck in this story, then I will rewrite it. Not by being smarter, stronger, or more ruthless. That sounded exhausting. I have a better idea. I will survive. That is all. I opened my eyes again, a faint smile forming on my lips. If they want to play their dramatic, tragic game, then I simply will not play along. Let them fight. Let them scheme. I will just sit back, watch, and make sure I stay alive until the end. Because this time, I refuse to be the one who dies. I did not have to wait long before the story began to move. That afternoon, the door to my room was knocked 3 times. Soft but deliberate. A servant's voice followed. "Miss Ziyan, Madam asked you to come downstairs for dinner." I opened my eyes slowly from the bed where I had been lying without doing anything for the past hour. So it begins. I stretched lazily, then got up without any urgency. If I remembered correctly, tonight was the moment. The female lead would enter this house, the beginning of everything. I walked down the long staircase step by step, my hand lightly brushing the smooth wooden railing. The mansion was quiet, but not peaceful. There was a strange tension in the air, like something invisible tightening around the walls. When I reached the living room, I saw them. My mother was sitting on the sofa, her posture elegant as always. A luxury handbag rested beside her, and she was smiling at her reflection in a small mirror. My brother Su Yubai stood nearby talking to her, his voice warm, relaxed. And my father. He was standing at the entrance. Next to him, a girl. She wore a simple dress, light-colored, almost fragile. No makeup, no jewelry. Her long hair fell softly over her shoulders, and her eyes looked slightly red, as if she had just cried. Delicate, helpless, perfect. Chi-Ro, the female lead. The moment our eyes met, she flinched slightly, then lowered her gaze, playing shy. I almost laughed. Father cleared his throat, drawing attention. "This is Chi-Ro," he said. "She will be staying with us from now on." My mother paused her movement just for a second, only a second. Then her smile returned, gentle and composed. "Of course," she said. "Any child in need is welcome here." Her voice was soft, kind, just like in the story. Too kind. Chi-Ro stepped forward carefully. "Hello, Auntie. Hello, brother. Hello, sister." Her voice was light, almost trembling. I watched her quietly. In the original plot, this was the moment everything shifted. My mother would feel sympathy. My brother would feel protective. And I was supposed to feel threatened, angry, jealous, and then begin my slow descent into madness. Instead, I leaned slightly against the armrest of the sofa and spoke in a calm, almost bored tone. "So you are the one." Everyone turned to look at me. Chi-Ro hesitated, then nodded softly. "Yes, sister." I tilted my head slightly, studying her from head to toe. Then I smiled. "All right, one simple word." But the reaction around me was immediate. My brother frowned slightly as if confused. My mother glanced at me carefully. Even my father looked surprised, because this was not how it was supposed to go. In the story, I would have exploded, thrown insults, created a scene. But now, there was nothing. No anger, no hostility, just indifference. Chi-Ro's fingers tightened slightly at her side, just for a second, then she quickly lowered her head again, hiding it. Interesting. I turned away from her and walked toward the dining table. "Dinner is getting cold," I said lightly. Everyone followed. The table was filled with dishes, rich, colorful, carefully prepared, but the atmosphere was far from warm. Chi-Ro sat down quietly across from me. My father kept talking, trying to ease the mood. My mother responded politely. My brother remained silent. And I picked up my chopsticks and started eating as if nothing had changed. Because to me, nothing had. I already knew what was coming. Chi-Ro would slowly insert herself into every corner of this family, gain trust, create misunderstandings, turn everyone against me. It was a long game, carefully planned and deadly. But there was one problem: me. I was no longer the original Su Zian. I had no interest in fighting her, no interest in competing, no interest in winning. I only had one goal: stay alive. So instead of resisting her, I would do something much simpler. I would let her in, let her take whatever she wanted, and then I would step aside. Because a game cannot continue if one player refuses to play. I took a bite of food slowly and lifted my gaze. For a brief moment, Chi-Ro looked up. Our eyes met again. This time, she did not look away immediately, and in that split second, the softness in her expression disappeared, replaced by something sharp, cold, calculating. Then it was gone, as if it had never existed. She lowered her head again, quietly eating. I smiled faintly. "There you are, the real you. Good. At least now things are honest." I leaned back slightly, completely at ease. This story was finally getting interesting. The next morning began earlier than I expected. I was still half asleep when a knock came at my door, not gentle this time. Firm, precise, almost impatient. I opened my eyes slowly, staring at the ceiling for a few seconds before responding. "Come in." The door opened and a servant stepped inside, bowing slightly. "Miss Sion, Madam is waiting for you downstairs." Of course she is. I let out a quiet breath and sat up. If I remembered correctly, this was the part where things started getting annoying. I changed into something simple, not bothering with makeup or styling, then walked downstairs. The living room was already occupied. My mother sat in her usual place, elegant, composed, a cup of tea in her hand. T. Rowe sat beside her, looking small, obedient, her posture perfect. My brother leaned against the window, scrolling through his phone, and my father, he was not there. Typical. I walked in without hurry and dropped onto the sofa across from them. You wanted to see me? My mother placed her teacup down gently and looked at me. Zion, she said softly. From today, Chi Ro will live with us. I nodded. I know. There was a brief pause. She continued, her tone still calm but slightly more serious. She will also transfer to your school. Take care of her. Ah, there it is. In the original story, this was where everything started going wrong. I was supposed to refuse, to mock Chi-Ro, to make things difficult, and in return, everyone would begin to see me as unreasonable. Instead, I leaned back into the sofa and replied without hesitation. Sure. The word fell lightly into the room, too light. My brother's hand stopped moving on his phone. My mother's gaze sharpened slightly. Chi-Ro looked up, clearly surprised. Even she did not expect that. I met her eyes briefly, then looked away as if it meant nothing. But inside, I could almost hear her thoughts spinning. Why is she not reacting? What is she planning? I almost smiled. Relax, I am not planning anything. Because I am not playing. My mother studied me for a moment longer before speaking again. Good, she said. Then get ready. You will go to school together. I stood up immediately. All right, no complaints. No hesitation, just simple cooperation. Because the faster I moved through these scenes, the less time I had to get dragged into unnecessary drama. Upstairs, I grabbed my bag and glanced at the mirror one more time. The girl looking back at me still had that same beautiful face, but now her eyes were different, calmer, sharper, alive. When I came back down, Chi-Ro was already waiting near the door. She looked at me carefully, as if trying to read something. I ignored it completely and walked past her. Let's go. The car ride was quiet, too quiet. Chi-Ro sat beside me, her hands folded neatly on her lap. After a few minutes, she finally spoke, her voice soft, cautious. Sister. I did not respond immediately. Just when she thought I would ignore her, I turned my head slightly. What? She hesitated, then smiled gently. I will try my best not to cause trouble for you. I looked at her for a second, then looked away again. Do whatever you want. My tone was flat, almost indifferent, because I meant it. She could scheme, manipulate, cry, act. None of it mattered to me, as long as I stayed out of it. The car stopped in front of the school gates, a prestigious private academy, the kind where every student either had power, money, or both. Perfect hunting ground. We stepped out together. Almost instantly, I could feel the attention. Whispers started around us. That is Su Zian. Who is the girl next to her? New transfer student. She looks so delicate. I could already predict what would happen next. Sympathy, curiosity, comparison, and slowly, division. Chi-Ro lowered her head slightly, playing her role perfectly. I walked forward without slowing down. As we entered the classroom, all eyes turned toward us. My seat was by the window, as always. Chi-Ro followed behind quietly. The teacher introduced her briefly, then arranged her seat right next to me. Of course, I sat down lazily, placing my bag aside. Chi-Ro took her seat carefully. The moment she settled in, I could feel it. The shift, attention, focusing, judgment forming. And right on cue, a familiar figure appeared at the classroom door. Tall, confident, careless. Shen Huaichuan, my fiancé, or more accurately, the male lead. He walked in like he owned the place, his gaze sweeping across the room before landing on me, then on Chi-Ro. There was a brief pause. Something unreadable flickered in his eyes, and just like that, another thread of the story tightened. I rested my chin on my hand and looked out the window. Here we go. The main stage is set. All the key players have arrived, and the story is about to accelerate. But this time, I am not the piece being sacrificed. I am the one watching from the side, waiting. For the moment, everything starts to fall apart. The first crack appeared before the first class even ended. It started with something small, too small for anyone to notice at first, except me and her. The classroom was quiet, filled with the soft sound of pages turning and pens moving across paper. The teacher was explaining something at the front. No one was paying attention to anything else. That was when Chi-Ro moved. It was subtle. Her hand brushed against the edge of my desk. A gentle push, barely there, but enough. My water cup tipped over. Clear liquid spread quickly across the desk, soaking my notebook, dripping down onto the floor. A few students gasped softly. All eyes turned toward us. Right on time, Chi-Ro froze for half a second, then stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I am sorry. Her voice trembled, her eyes already turning red. I did not mean to. She reached out as if to help, but stopped midway, her fingers curling slightly as if afraid. The perfect picture of panic and guilt. I looked down at the mess slowly, then back at her. In the original story, this was where I would explode, accuse her, embarrass her in front of everyone, and from that moment on, I would become the villain in everyone's eyes. But now, I simply picked up a tissue and wiped the edge of the desk. It is just water, I said calmly. No need to overreact. Silence. A strange kind of silence spread through the room. Chi-Ro's expression flickered, just for a second, too fast for anyone else to catch. But I saw it. Something in her plan had gone wrong. She hesitated, then forced a small smile. Still, I am really sorry, sister. She lowered her head again, waiting for me to respond the way I was supposed to, waiting for the scene to escalate. I leaned back slightly and looked at her. Then I said something she definitely did not expect. Then do not do it again. Simple, direct, and completely uninteresting. A few students exchanged glances, confused, disappointed even, because there was no drama, no conflict, no entertainment. The teacher cleared his throat awkwardly and continued the lesson. The moment passed, just like that. But only on the surface, because I could feel it. Chi-Ro was watching me, closely, carefully, trying to understand why things were not going according to plan. I rested my chin on my hand and stared at the blackboard lazily, but inside I was thinking. So this is how you start. Small accidents, public sympathy, gradual isolation, step by step, clean, efficient. If I were still the original Suzian, I would already be walking straight into your trap. I almost smiled. Unfortunately, I am not. The bell rang. Class ended. The room immediately filled with noise. Students stood up, chatting, laughing, moving around. And right on cue, the next move came. Chi-Ro stood up slowly, but this time, she did not move toward me. She moved toward Shen Huaichuan. He was leaning against the back wall, talking to someone casually. When she approached, he noticed. His brows furrowed slightly. Confusion, impatience, maybe a little curiosity. She stopped in front of him, her hands clasped together tightly. Her voice was soft, hesitant. I am sorry. I caused trouble just now. Shen Huaichuan looked at her for a moment, then glanced at me. I did not react, did not even look at them, just quietly flipping through my book as if none of it mattered, which, to me, it did not. He looked back at her again. You did not cause trouble for me. His tone was flat, Not warm, not cold, just indifferent. Another failure. I could almost hear it, the invisible misstep in her plan. Because what she wanted was his attention, his protection, the beginning of his interest. But instead, she got nothing. Chiro lowered her head again, her fingers tightening. But she did not give up. She stepped a little closer, still trying to hold on to the moment. I just thought, since you are close to sister, maybe you would misunderstand. That was when I finally looked up. Our eyes met across the classroom. For a brief second, everything went quiet. Then I smiled, not mocking, not warm, just calm. Do whatever you want, I said lightly. You do not need to explain anything to me. The words were simple, but they landed differently because they broke the pattern. Again, Shen Huaitron's gaze lingered on me longer this time, something unreadable forming in his eyes. Interest. Maybe Chiro noticed it too. And that was the first real crack, because for the first time, she realized something clearly. I was no longer moving the way she expected, and that made me unpredictable. I stood up slowly, grabbing my bag. As I walked past her, I stopped for just a second, close enough for only her to hear. If you want to play, pick someone else. My voice was low, calm, almost lazy. Then I walked away, leaving her standing there, frozen, because this time, the game had already changed. The shift did not happen suddenly. It crept in quietly, like something invisible slipping into the cracks of reality. At first, no one noticed, not even me, until that moment. It was late afternoon. The sunlight outside had softened, turning golden as it filtered through the classroom windows. Most students were tired. Some were chatting, some were half asleep. I rested my head on my arm, staring out the window. Peaceful, for once. There was no drama, no traps, no schemes, just silence. Then a voice appeared, clear, soft, and very familiar. This is boring. I blinked. My eyes shifted slightly. No one was speaking. The classroom remained the same, unchanged. But the voice came again. If she keeps acting like this, it will be harder to deal with her. This time, I froze, because I recognized it. Qiro. Slowly, I turned my head. She was sitting beside me, head lowered, expression calm, fingers gently holding a pen. She looked exactly the same as before, quiet, harmless, but she was not speaking. My heart skipped. Then another voice, deeper, colder. She is different. That one came from behind. I did not need to look to know Su Yu Bai, my brother. I slowly straightened my posture. Something was wrong, very wrong. I glanced at him. He was leaning back in his chair, arms crossed, his eyes on me. But his lips were not moving. And yet, the voice continued. If she causes trouble, I will handle it. A chill ran down my spine. I turned back forward. My fingers tightened slightly on the edge of the desk. No, this is not possible. I am imagining things, right? Then another voice, warm, familiar, but filled with hesitation. Ziyan feels different lately, mother. My breathing slowed. My mind began to race. 3 voices, all of them clear, all of them real, but none of them spoken. I swallowed slowly, and then a thought formed. Careful, sharp, impossible. Can I hear their thoughts? Silence. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then, as if answering me, Chiro's voice came again. Why is she so calm? Did she notice something? This time, there was no doubt. My heart dropped. I leaned back slowly, forcing my expression to remain unchanged. So this is it, the real twist. Not just a simple story, not just predictable plot. Something else had been added, something dangerous. Because if I could hear them, then, what if they could hear me too? The thought sent a wave of cold through my body. I stayed completely still, not moving, not reacting. Testing, just testing. In my mind, I spoke clearly. Let us see. No reaction. Thierry remained the same. My brother did not move. The classroom noise continued. I waited. 1 second, 2. Nothing. I let out a quiet breath. So, it is one way. Only me. That made things easier and more dangerous, because not a slight change in my eyes. Interesting, very interesting. Now the game had changed again. Not just unpredictable. Now I had information, real information. I could hear what they truly thought. Not their words, not their actions, but their intentions, their plans, their lies. I almost laughed. Chiro, you rely on pretending, on hiding, on manipulating from the shadows. But now there are no shadows. Not anymore. The bell rang. Class ended. The noise returned, louder than before. Chairs moved, voices overlapped. But to me, everything sounded different now. Because beneath every word, there were thoughts. Unfiltered, uncontrolled, real. I stood up slowly, and for the first time, a genuine smile appeared on my lips. Not lazy, not indifferent, but sharp, alive. This story just became unfair, and this time, the advantage is mine. Once you hear the truth, you can never go back to ignorance. Everything changes. Every word, every glance, every smile becomes transparent, predictable, controllable. That was exactly how the next day felt. The world looked the same, but to me, it was completely different. I walked into the classroom as usual, calm, unhurried. But the moment I stepped inside, the noise hit me. Not from voices, from thoughts. So many thoughts overlapping, messy, loud, unfiltered. She looks even prettier today. Did she fight with someone yesterday? I heard something happened. Is that the new girl? Too many. I ignored them all, filtering, focusing, until I found the ones that mattered. Chiro. She was already there, sitting quietly. Perfect posture, perfect expression. The same harmless mask, but her thoughts were different. Something is wrong. She has not reacted once, not even a little. This is not normal. I paused for half a second, then continued walking to my seat as if nothing happened. Good, you finally noticed. I placed my bag down and sat, calm as always, lazy as always, untouchable. From the corner of my eye, I could see her glance at me. Careful, measured. Then she smiled, soft, gentle, exactly the kind of smile that fooled everyone. Sister. Her voice was light, warm. I turned my head slightly. What? She hesitated just enough to seem natural, then spoke again. Are you free after school? I want to talk to you. Ah, so we are skipping the small tricks now, going straight to testing. I looked at her for a second, then leaned back in my chair. No, simple, direct, no space for manipulation. Her smile froze, just slightly, but her thoughts betrayed her instantly. Why? What is she avoiding? Is she scared? I almost laughed. Scared? No, just not interested. I turned my gaze away completely, ending the conversation. Around us, the classroom atmosphere shifted again. Whispers began, curiosity grew, and right on time, another presence joined. Shen Huaichuan. He walked in late as usual, hands in his pockets, expression lazy. But today, his attention was different. It went straight to me. Not passing, not casual. Direct. She really changed. His thought was clear, focused. I did not look at him, just opened my book calmly, let him look. The more he paid attention, the more unstable things would become. For Chiro. And right on cue, her thoughts sharpened. Why is he looking at her? He never does that. There it is. Jealousy. Small, but real. That was the first real mistake, because once emotions appear, control weakens. The lesson started, but no one was really paying attention. Not him, not her, and definitely not me, because I was already thinking ahead. If she is testing me, then she will not stop. She will escalate, push harder, faster, and when she does, she will make a mistake, a real one. I just need to wait, and then give her a little push. The bell rang. End of class. Students stood up, stretching, moving around. And just as expected, she moved again. This time, faster, more direct. Before I could even stand up, she reached out and grabbed my wrist. Not hard, but firm enough. Sister. Her voice trembled again, but her thoughts were completely different. You cannot keep ignoring me. I slowly looked down at her hand, then at her face. For a second, no one spoke. The room grew quiet because everyone was watching, waiting for something to happen. This was the moment, the kind of moment that decides roles. Victim, villain, winner, loser. In the original story, I would lose here. But now I gently removed her hand, slowly, carefully, as if it meant nothing. Do not touch me. My voice was calm, soft, but cold. The air shifted instantly. Chiro froze, not because of my words, but because of what came next. Her thoughts shook. Why does it feel like she knows everything? For the first time, fear appeared, real fear, and I saw it, clear as day. I leaned slightly closer, just enough so only she could hear. If you want to stay here, then stay quietly. My tone was still light, almost lazy, but every word landed precisely. Otherwise, do not blame me. I straightened up immediately, as if nothing had happened. The classroom noise slowly returned, but something had already changed. The balance. It tilted. For the first time, she was no longer in control, and she knew it. I picked up my bag and walked past her, without looking back, because I did not need to. I could already hear it. Her thoughts. Messy, panicked, unstable. What is she? What did she find out? Good. Keep thinking, keep doubting, because the more you lose control, the faster this ends. And this time, you are the one walking toward the trap. Pressure does not explode immediately. It builds slowly, silently, until one moment, everything collapses. That moment came sooner than I expected. It started after school. The sky was dim, the sun already setting behind the tall buildings. Most students had left. The campus felt quieter, but not empty. Never empty, because someone was waiting. I stepped out of the school gate calmly, my pace unhurried, as if I already knew what was coming. And I did. From the moment her thoughts turned chaotic, I knew. She would act soon, faster than before, more desperate. And desperation always leads to mistakes. Just as I reached the side path near the parking area, a voice stopped me. Sister. I turned. Tiro stood there, alone. No trembling this time, no fragile expression. Her posture was straight, her gaze steady. The mask was gone. Good, finally. We do not need to pretend anymore. The air between us changed instantly, colder, sharper. You have been acting strange. Her voice was calm now, controlled, but her thoughts were not. What did you find out? How much does she know? I looked at her quietly, then smiled faintly. You too. A simple answer, but enough. Her eyes narrowed slightly. So it is true. She took a step closer. No more hesitation, no more weakness. You are not the same as before. I tilted my head slightly. Neither are you. Silence, heavy, tense. Then she laughed softly, low, cold, very different from before. Interesting. She looked at me as if seeing me for the first time. Then her voice dropped. Tell me, what do you know? There it is. Direct, no more games. I met her gaze calmly. Everything. One word. But it hit like a blade. Her expression finally cracked. Just for a second. But enough. Impossible. Her thought burst out, sharp, uncontrolled. My smile deepened slightly. You pushed too fast. Now you are the one losing control. She stared at me, trying to regain composure, trying to think, but it was already too late. Because I took a step forward, closing the distance. You want to replace me? My voice was soft, almost gentle. Take my place. Take my family. Take everything. Each word landed slowly, clearly, exactly matching her hidden intentions. Her pupils shrank, because now there was no denying it. I know everything. Who are you? Her voice finally lost its calm. There was something raw in it now. Fear, real fear. I looked at her for a long second, then answered simply, someone you should not have provoked. Silence. The wind moved lightly through the trees, but neither of us moved. Then I continued, still calm, still steady. If you want to stay, then stay. I am not interested in fighting you. That was the truth. From the beginning, I never wanted this. But my gaze sharpened slightly. If you touch what is mine, I will end it. No threat in my tone, no anger, just certainty. And that was far more dangerous. T-Row stood there, frozen, because she understood. This was not the original Su Zian, not someone she could manipulate, not someone she could control. This was something else, something she could not predict, something she could not win against easily. For the first time, she hesitated, and that hesitation was her biggest weakness. I stepped back slightly, creating distance again. The moment was over, for now. Then I turned and walked away. Just like that, no drama, no shouting, no witnesses, but the impact was already there. Behind me, I could still hear it. Her thoughts, chaotic, unstable. What do I do? How do I deal with her? Good. Keep thinking, because from now on, every step you take will be wrong, and I will be watching, waiting for the moment you destroy yourself. The night fell quietly, but beneath that calm, the story had already shifted, completely. The hunter and the prey had changed places. After that night, nothing looked the same anymore. Not the house, not the school, not the people around me. Because once a mask is broken, it can never be worn the same way again. Chiro changed, not on the surface. She was still gentle, still quiet, still perfect in front of everyone. But inside, she was different. Careful, guarded, constantly watching me. Every move, every reaction. She stopped making small traps, stopped acting impulsively, because now she knew I could see through her, and that made her hesitate. That hesitation was everything. Days passed, quiet on the outside, but underneath, everything was shifting. My mother returned to the company more often, her thoughts clear. Something is wrong with him. I need to check everything. My brother changed too. No more careless attitude, no more distance. His thoughts sharper. I will not let anything happen to her. And my father? He was the only one who did not notice. Or maybe he noticed but chose to ignore it. Because greed blinds faster than fear. Until the day everything collapsed. It happened in the living room. Evening. The whole family was there. The atmosphere looked normal. Too normal. That was the problem. My father finally spoke, his tone firm, controlled. I have something to discuss. My mother looked at him calmly. Say it. He hesitated for a brief moment, then continued. I want Chiro to officially join this family, not just as someone we support, but as a daughter. Silence, heavy, sharp. I did not react. I already knew this was coming, but this time it would not end the same way. My mother placed her teacup down slowly, her eyes fixed on him. Why? Just one word, but enough. My father forced a smile. She is kind, she is capable, she deserves it. Lie. Every word, a lie. Before my mother could speak again, I stood up, slowly. All eyes turned to me. I looked at Chiro, then at him, then smiled. You are right. The room froze. Chiro's eyes widened slightly. My father looked surprised. My mother frowned, but I continued. Calm, clear. If she deserves it, then she should have it. A pause, long enough for tension to build. Then I added, including everything that comes with it. My voice remained soft, but every word landed. The name, the position, the truth. Silence. Then, my mother's thought cut through. What is she planning? My brothers. This is not normal. Chiro's. Something is wrong. Too late. I reached into my bag and placed a small device on the table. A recorder. Click. The sound filled the room, and then, voices. Clear. Undeniable. Plans. Schemes. A car with broken brakes. A staged accident. Laughter. Cold. Cruel. Every word belonged to two people, Chiro and my father. The air shattered. My mother stood up abruptly, her face pale. My brother's expression turned cold, deadly cold. Chiro froze completely. No acting, no pretending, nothing left. My father collapsed, his composure gone. What is this? He shouted, but his voice lacked strength because he knew it was over. I looked at him calmly. You tell me. Silence. Heavy. Final. Everything unfolded quickly after that. Police, questions, truth, exposure. The house that once looked perfect was torn open completely. My father, taken away. Chiro, gone with him. No tears, no drama, because the ending was already decided. Days later, the house felt quiet again. But this time, it was real. No lies, no hidden danger, just peace. My mother sat beside me one afternoon, her hand resting gently over mine. You have changed. Her voice was soft. I smiled slightly. Maybe. She did not ask more, and I did not explain. Some things are better left unsaid. My brother leaned against the door, watching us. For once, his thoughts were simple. She is safe. That is enough. I stood up and walked toward the window. The sunlight felt warm, real. For the first time, I was not trapped. Not in a story, not in a fate. I turned slightly, a faint smile on my lips. This story was supposed to end with my death, but now it ends with something else, freedom. And far behind me, somewhere I would never look again, a story that no longer belongs to me.